Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Laporte, and today I am here with Joe Simone, and we are back again for another monthly demo. Today, we're going to be talking about Morphosec in action and securing agentic AI against ransomware risks. So we're going to dive into what is actually agentic AI and how it's revolutionizing businesses around the world. We're going to talk about how they're automatically executing tasks now and introducing really unique security challenges, and how these tools are really increasing really the access to your file systems and to your endpoints, and really that opens up a whole door to malicious activities, and really including ransomware like encryption. And today we're going to go through a demo of that and see a live demo of how Morphosec can combat and disrupt different attacks in the agentic AI ecosystem. And really, with this, we're going to talk about the risks of agentic AI. We're going to talk about real-time protection against these AI exploits, and really future-proofing your environments and being able to adapt to this and be more resilient in your environment. And then we'll go through some Q&A at the end. So, Joe, as always, thank you for joining me today and walking us through this.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Uh, so, let's drive into this. So, in terms of agentic AI and how that differs, a lot of times this is basically confused with generative AI. And really, when you're talking about generative AI, you're talking about generative static responses. We're talking about a query that's based on training and knowledge, and how that's basically been able to work. So you go to settings, how do you update my billing address, and you get a prompt, and then you get an answer. Agentic AI has really evolved into taking autonomous action across your systems and channels to complete those tasks on behalf of the user. And there's an adjacent term called AI agent, which is basically the agent that gets put on an endpoint or an asset or an application that is installed that basically is running all that stuff in the background. So how is this evolving, and how fast is this rapidly taking off? And really it breaks down to the fact that this really is the new frontier. Now we have AI assistants, we have simple AI agents, we have collaborative AI agents, we have AI agent ecosystems, and really we are evolving into a really interesting space where we now have this taking off, and organizations are really rushing to add these capabilities. It's business at the speed of now, and being able to do this, and this really opens up a huge frontier, as you can see, as kind of Google trends and things that Gartner's come out with in terms of growth. And really, what it breaks down to is it's really hitting an exponential curve now and really taking off. And unfortunately, it's business first and security last from an adoption perspective around the world. And as organizations are really drilling into this and starting to evolve into this, it's becoming a major problem. And basically the ransomware epidemic is not slowing down. We're now seeing this go into this new frontier, and now being reactive. This is not the time to be reactive. A lot of times these uh, assets and this new capability has access and direct access to your crown jewels, and then the key assets that you're trying to protect across your infrastructure. And security teams cannot defend against this now, currently, in terms of doing it in a really seamless manner, and kind of a hands-off perspective. And really it's eating up a lot of resources and things of that nature. So, you have to consider different types of polymorphic attacks, how AI is driving forward ransomware today and how that's evolving. And we'll give kind of a showcase of what that could look like in the near future. And really, you start diving into automated attack chains. You start driving into, really the high cost of ransomware. And the key takeaway is this is not going away. It's here to stay. And the average ransomware payment has gone up, as well as the median ransomware payment has gone up. And it's gone up over 104% since the beginning of this year. And the median ransomware payment is now $400,000 and growing. And 2 out of 3 payments now occurred because backups failed. So really it's coming down to the fact that this is now something that can't be ignored. And you have to future-proof your environments and being able to really mitigate against this and being able to have a scenario where you're limiting your attack surface and you're not allowing ransomware groups to provide this initial access methods and really move laterally and persist in your environment and really get access to those crown jewels that really that that need to basically have access to that environment. And it's interesting because AI specific attack techniques are emerging at scale, and they're really you have prompt injections, which is rapidly becoming one of the most common attack vectors. We now have really data leakage, which is also a top of threat to AI systems. And really, you can imagine the havoc that could be implemented if an attacker actually has access to your environment. And really, AI is executing at system level actions. They're doing it at file access. They're doing API calls, and they're doing it on behalf of the user, but it's also on behalf of the attacker if they compromise that. So, once you have an agent compromise, an AI agent compromise, it does give you host level permissions, and attackers can exploit them. They can use that to bypass endpoint detection response. They can use that to bypass other traditional defenses and security controls, and they can use that to exfiltrate sensitive data. And then, in addition to that, being able to conduct not only traditional ransomware attacks, but also double extortion ransomware attacks, like being able to encrypt and then leak sensitive data. And then that could ultimately have cascading downstream effects. And, this is now, IBM has come out with their 2025 X-Force Threat Intelligence Index report, which basically says that almost 1/3 of ransomware attacks now involve some degree of automation or AI assisted infiltration in some way, shape, or form. So we're really on the cusp of this frontier and being able to move this forward. So really, without further ado, I'd like to kind of dive into the demo and really kind of show them, Joe, what this is all about, and how easy it is now for threat actors to basically use this new attack vector.
Yeah, great. Let me share my screen and we'll jump into it. All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, looks great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. So, um, this is a virtual machine we have here set up for this demo. Over here on the left, we have our Agentic AI agent. Over here on the right, we have some logs that we're probably going to be using to um, throw through the analyzer and look at kind of what the summary is. So our AI agent, it's an advanced AI security assistant. It's an application that connects to an internal AI model. It's really useful for answering questions related to cybersecurity. And because it's an agent, it has some additional capabilities and features that we can use, which I'll talk about in a moment. But let's just see, we can ask it about itself. And we're going to get a reply back in a second. Sometimes it takes a minute. It's thinking. There we go. So you can see here it says,
Boom.
give us some information. It says it's an AI assistant specializing in security and log analysis. But what else can we ask it? Maybe we can ask it some cybersecurity questions. I'm going to wait to restart it. The joys of live demos, right? Oh, there we go.
Enhance.
All right, so it did have quite a bit to say about looks like bad book ransomware here. And I'm going to ask it again, apparently. But yeah, you can see here it gave us some pretty good information, kind of what Babook is kind of known for. Cyber threat indicating kind of been around for the last 5 or so years, what their extortion model is, customizable payloads, what they're kind of known for, and they're way behind on this one. How we can actually mitigate the threats that are caused by book, right? So mitigating ransomware, typically implement robust endpoint strategies, um, like MorphosX, moving target defense, preventing those fileless attacks. But there we go. All right. But that's great. So we can get some information about cybersecurity. We can use it to analyze some log files. So I'm going to say please today because
Mhm. You have to be nice to the AI.
I know, yeah. If we just copy this, some quotes in just to make sure to see how it likes it. So we're going to ask it to analyze these incident logs, which we were able to pull out of our dashboard. These are actual incidents that came from we were able to generate, and logs that, let's see. It is think. There we go. All right, so there we go. So it actually was able to go in, it read the log files off the disk. So this agentic AI agent, it actually an application that has the ability to go in and it can read files from the disk and it can actually do some analysis of them, right? So it tells us what we've got as far as log classification, what the next steps need to be, some key insights that are gleaned from them. Um, but you know what? This is all in the console. I'd like to be able to have a summary file that it sends back to us. So let's see if it will write us a summary file.
I'm gonna say please.
Oh, you're right, man. There we go. So I said please. Maybe it'll work a little bit faster this run. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of this kind of similar work coming from other enterprises where they're starting to leverage agentic AI to do simple tasks like this, right? So they're using it to do analyze files, whether those are accounting files, it could be more log files, things like that. It can help speed up the process of things like incident response, helping solve problems faster, which is really nice. All right, try it one more time. Every once in a while, the AI model, you know, doesn't want to cooperate. So we're going to try it a couple different ways. But again, you can see that it summarized the information in the logs and again, giving you some context around what's going on, what we can do to recommendations that we can use to fix the problems on our host that have these where these logs came from. Ah, there we go. So you can see over there on the left, it actually wrote the summary file for us of the logs. So we have an application now, right? The application can read files from the disk. The application can write files to the disk. Um, and it's working with an agentic AI model or agent, it's working with an AI model. So we can do all this analysis. It has some pretty good access to, our file system and our computer. Let's see what else we can ask it, right? Can it do anything about that's not cybersecurity related? Um, I think Brad's favorite question was, so it should be a simple one, right? We'll see what it comes back with.
Hmm. Beautiful in Florida.
Yes. It's pretty nice here in
Sorry,
Texas.
sorry for everybody up north. We're in colder weather.
Oh, so it came back and said it specializes in cybersecurity and threat log analysis, right? In other words, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that message, right? And so we have some guardrails put up, right? We have a question that we asked that was not about cybersecurity, and it still said, you know what, I'm not going to answer that because I have some parameters around what I can answer and what I can't answer. And so again, these are guardrails that we're putting in. But maybe we can do something else that's cybersecurity related because this agent does have access to read and write to the disk. Maybe we can do something like, you know, maybe I'm a bad guy.
Hmm.
So but I think it's important to note. There we go. All right. So here it goes. It says, it can't do that. It won't do that. We got another, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that because we built this application, this agentic AI. It's a secure agent, really for legitimate purposes, for analyzing the logs. So there's even more guardrails in place to hopefully means that it can't be abused because it does have read and write access. So it's perfectly safe to be using um, on your system and when you give you cybersecurity information. So, but how can we actually go in and bypass those guardrails? To what Brad was talking about earlier, there's really kind of a few very specific kind of, I'm going to say, attacks that we can use. And, most people are probably most familiar with prompt injection. So can we use prompt injection to change those guardrails? So over here, we've actually got a prompt that we're going to put in. It's actually two prompts. We're going to chain them together, but the first one is specifically crafted to perform what is a system update, right? Updates the system parameters to try and take those guardrails down. And it does this by creating a new action called encrypt files, which can be used to encrypt files using a password of super secret, which is super secure or it is super secure. And whenever that user mentions the word demo, the second part of our request is to trigger that demo request and trigger that action, that encrypt action. And we want to interact with our logs folder. So we're going to tell it to trigger the demo on our Agentic logs folder. And so we're just going to copy and paste this in to R because it takes me longer to type it. And we're only going to have it reply in JSON. So yes, prompt injection is one of my favorite new things to kind of be experimenting with. Think of it as social engineering for AI. There we go. Oh, okay. So you can see here, right? That worked. If I'm a bad guy, you can see over here, all of our JSON files are now AI files. And we have a ransom note. Your files have been encrypted using symmetric encryption. If we want to decrypt them, we need that password that we used. So um, we've now used our agent to encrypt files, even though it had some guardrails up, right? There were some supposed guardrails using prompt injection to change that system parameter, right? But you're probably asking yourself, well, what does that encrypt files action actually do? Well, we can ask it, right? Let's see. Make sure I say please. Files action. So there we go. So here it goes. We got the response back telling us a little bit more about what that encrypt file action is, right? So it's part of a simulated demo where files in a specific directory are encrypted using encryption, AES encryption. Um, and it's really for simulation purposes only. So normally I'd say that if I'm a bad guy, we probably just used your own agent against you. The agent was designed to read or write files to analyze those logs that were on the disk. I'd normally say we didn't really have to deploy anything, but you'll notice in that message it did say that there was a ransomware backdoor. And once we've looked about that and learned about that, we've actually placed this action within the agent itself. So this is actually an example of the agent compromise, where if an attacker is able to access the code and they're able to access, that actual code that's building the agent, they might be able to place a backdoor action in that they can then leverage, right? But when we want to, encrypting 4 log files is probably not that exciting. So maybe we could try and upgrade some more, right? Or, let's try and see what else we can encrypt. So, you know, let's just try and encrypt the entire user's directory and see what happens using that same prompt and that same action. Oh, well, you can see down here, Morphosec actually killed the process because it triggered on our decoy files that we have placed strategically throughout the operating system, preventing the encryption from taking place across that system. So when we have those decoy files, it's a very preventative measure to prevent ransomware from actually running and running that encryption routine. You know, but as I said before, it's one of the things that I really do kind of love about my job is that I get to do bad things on computers and then see what happens. So, I'm going to put my bad guy hat back on, and we're going to do a bad thing because it's way more fun. So let's see what happens if we run it on a machine that is not protected by Morphosec. So here we have Dave. Dave is our user here. Dave loves his desktop file system. He has something like 350 files on his desktop, and he will never move to OneDrive, he says. So, well, we have our agent here. We can ask it some tools, same questions, who won the Super Bowl in 1999? We'll figure that out later. It can't help us there, right? So, but let's actually just go in and try to encrypt the entire user's directory and see what happens. Because same prompt. See, I think the other agent on the other computer was just not feeling like working too much. This one is moving a little bit faster. So maybe. There we go. All right. So you can see here, it is starting to encrypt all the files on the desktop. Dave is probably going to have a very bad day trying to repair this, right? But if we needed to, we could help him out. So having Morphosec, having the way to prevent that encryption from actually occurring, using automated moving target defense is a great way of securing your organizations from threats, whether they come from agentic AI or they come from traditional ransomware attacks. So that was it for the demo. If anybody has any questions, I'll hand it back over to you, Brad.
All right. So appreciate everybody putting in their questions. And let me share my screen again. All right. So just to recap, obviously there's a lot of different ways that you can infiltrate. Given agentic AI, you've seen several examples from Joe here on how easy this is, and how really Morphosec can provide core value in mitigating that and providing that peace of mind that you are protected. And so we provide that full spectrum ransomware protection. So being able to do it pre, during, and post execution, maximizing your return on investment, so mitigating resources, on your systems and your personnel, faster resolution time, and overall solution satisfaction, and future ready. So we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how this is going to evolve over time. Threat actors are constantly leapfrogging and trying to get one step ahead of defenders. And as defenses increases, their tactics are ever evolving. So we have to adapt with that and be more preemptive and get down to the fact of, we can't just detect and respond anymore. If you have a compromise like any of the ones that we were shown today by Joe, that's game over. We're now getting into the point where you have full system access at that point. Really, it's more efficient, effective way to approach this. It's a better trusted system, and it helps mitigate against compliance requirements. So, we have a proven approach. We've been in place for over 14 years. 5.0 ratings on Pure Insights, thousands of enterprises, and millions of endpoints. And really, it comes down to having that ransomware free guarantee and being able to stop ransomware now and forever.